the Los Angeles-based publisher and its Japanese development team at YEP still have several elements to work on for future editions, WWE Smackdown does more than a solid job of living up to its potential. Then again, with the excitement surrounding this sucker, it had better. One of the most talked about aspects of WWE Smackdown every year is its ever-changing roster. Originally scheduled to include 69 different playable superstars, the final retail version of the game has been pared down by 4. Though the removal of grapplers Johnny Stanley, Nunzio, Hulk Hogan, and the Ultimate Warrior were definitely met rather harshly by the game's hardcore fans, the remaining lineup of 65 WWE personalities is still quite an impressive number to behold. By comparison, the Xbox-exclusive Raw 2 boasts 64 superstars, while the GameCube-only WrestleMania 18 boasts 45. In addition to the wrestlers numbered above, it's also possible to play as Jerry, King, Lawler, and Jim Ross. Though they can't be unlocked for exhibition or regular season mode in any way, they can be called upon as special tag team partners during the storyline if you play your cards right. Other than those two special characters, however, what you see listed below is everyone that you'll have to work with. Click on any of the names in the following chart to be instantly hyperlinked to that character's IGN Smackdown biography page. Now, despite the slight advantage that Smackdown holds over its brethren in terms of numbers, we can't help but feel as though there's a ton of established superstars that should have, but didn't, make the final cut. Bradshaw, Farouk, Maven, Shane McMahon, Sylvan Grenier, and Rene Dupree are but a few of the many established wrestlers currently enjoying WWE storylines that were overlooked entirely. And though it's common knowledge that the WWE has final approval over all its video game lineups, the fact that those grapplers are missing still leaves us with a bad taste in our mouths. Another sore spot for the roster are the roles given to the WWE women. Originally expected to be included in the season mode alongside the men, the game's expanded roster of females ultimately ends up becoming nothing more than exhibition fodder. Granted, you'll be able to assume the role of a couple of women for a singles or tag team match at certain points in your career, but there's no option to control them for an entire season on their own. Gail Kim, Molly Holly, Ivory, and several of the other established female wrestlers joined some of our male requests as grapplers who have sadly been omitted. The 11 included legends were definitely an interesting idea, and it was a nice way to counter-acclaim solid-selling Legends of Wrestling series that was mysteriously absent from 2003. Unfortunately, this particular segment of the roster quickly loses its novelty appeal after a few short experiences. Being able to control the old-school Undertaker, the Road Warriors, and Roddy Piper can be cool for a while, but when looking at their value to the game in comparison to adding 11 more of today's active superstars, it seems like an unfair trade-off. But you shouldn't find yourself discouraged by this roster-based nitpicking, as despite our complaint list above, the 65 grapplers under your control behave and wrestle exactly as they're supposed to. With few exceptions, each wrestler on the roster has every single move they've ever used and do so with the same amount of frequency that you've seen on television. From Brock Lesnar's amazing, but botched, shooting star press to the standing elbow that The Undertaker uses for his grapple setups, it's all pretty much in there. They're definitely the most accurate depiction of WWE personalities we've yet experienced. Easily outdoing last year's version in terms of match types, Here Comes the Pain should offer fans plenty of wrestling alternatives. Separated into 8 central categories, players will be able to select from singles, tag team, and 6-man tag team contests in addition to handicap bouts, hardcore matches, the Royal Rumble, Survival Mode, and main events. Much to our surprise, however, the I Quit competition and King of the Ring tournament that were found in last year's Shut Your Mouth have been expelled from the lineup entirely. is to rip the clothes off of your opponent and leave her in nothing but her underwear. To accomplish this, all you have to do is press the D-pad down and the X button at the same time when grappling or pinning an opponent, and you'll have the chance to go after her shirt or her pants, depending on how quickly you press the button. Your grapple meter will move in either your favor or your opponent's, more on that later, and you'll either fail or succeed. It's an interesting novelty match for sure, but not exactly the groundbreaking new mode all the advertisements are making out to be. One feature that far exceeds the billing, however, is the all-new Elimination Chamber. First introduced at the 2002 Survivor Series, the Elimination Chamber is a massive cage-like apparatus that incorporates 6 wrestlers at once. But rather than send them in all at the same time, 4 of them are housed in glass tubes that open up one by one as a clock ticks down. Victories can come by either pinfall or submission, in which wrestler is left standing when it's over wins. Luckily, the video game interpretation has captured this mode flawlessly, complete with breaking glass, the ability to climb on top of the tubes, and some frantic close-up action. Plugging in a multi-tap and using 6 players at once is highly recommended. Of course, there are returning staples to keep you busy as well. Ladder matches, cage matches, Hell in a Cell, hardcore street fights, slobber knockers, ultimate submission bouts, and various other instruments of destruction can be yours for the taking, with the further ability to customize these matchups so that they can be transformed into tag team, triple threat, and fatal 4-way bouts. Players shouldn't worry about running out of things to do. It's just too bad about the King of the Ring and I Quit omissions, though, as it would have been a great addition to have 2 pre-existing modes in there that could allow you to reenact the events of the '99 Royal Rumble and give you an opportunity to build your own tournaments in-game. Oh well. If you've played a Smackdown game before, then you're probably already familiar with the fact that you can travel backstage and continue the action. What you may not realize, however, is just how interactive these new environments can be. There are 6 backstage areas in all, and each one of them includes a myriad of different objects and items that can be picked up and manipulated. Television sets, iron bars, wooden sticks, trash cans, sledgehammers, and a ton of other such weapons of mayhem are scattered all over the ground. But that's just the beginning of what you can find. What's undoubtedly the coolest aspect of these background areas, though, are the deformable environments. While they aren't on the same level as War of the Monsters or Godzilla, the backgrounds can definitely start to resemble a war zone. Walls and windows will shatter, cars in the parking lot will be destroyed, and tables and other such furniture will break into 1,000 pieces. Additionally, there are a number of vehicles and climbable areas that you can explore too, and every stage has a unique selection of what to choose from. Though admittedly the vehicles are next to useless, the motorcycle and bulldozer are funny conversation pieces, but have almost no use whatsoever. The structures that you can climb on top of actually prove to be pretty valuable. The Times Square stage, for instance, allows you to leap off the billboard in front of the WWE restaurant, and you can even grab a hold of a ladder that's attached to a helicopter circling the premises. Needless to say, these arenas are far more entertaining than they used to be. The arenas themselves have all been updated to reflect last year's pay-per-view sets and are considerable improvements over Shut Your Mouth. Pavement areas outside the ring are slightly bigger and allow for better movement and evasion from your opponents as well, and there are even a couple of new moves that can be performed from the outside the ring that you couldn't do before. Hell in a Cell contests and cage matches offer a little more room to maneuver too, and it's a lot easier to may want to rethink their position after playing this one. Smackdown's changes themselves are actually pretty simple. In previous versions of the series, players were given minimum, medium, and maximum grapple attacks based on what kind of condition their opponent was in, normal, dizzy, or groggy. In Here Comes the Pain, however, the system has been changed so that gamers can guess less and strategize more. But rather than require you to hold a button for a certain amount of time or dizzy your opponent before performing a maneuver, HCTP enables you to use the DualShock's accurate D-pad functions for a more precise and effective attack. To use it, simply initiate the type of grapple you want to perform, up in circle for power, down in circle for submission, left in circle for signature, and right in circle for quitting. Once the type of grapple you've chosen has been initiated, you can then press another direction on the pad a second time in combination with the grapple button to perform a different type of maneuver. Regardless of what condition opponents are in, the move you wanted to perform will be pulled off, as long as you manage to do so before opponents can do one of their own. As we mentioned earlier, the bra and panties match activates a slider bar that illustrates who is winning the grappling struggle between two women as they fight to tear each other's clothes off. The submission system works much in the same way. If one player grabs another in a bear hug, for example, the slider bar appears at the top of the screen with the name of both men on each side of it. Depending on that character's submission rating, a certain number of seconds will go by before the hold is automatically withdrawn, and it's within that time frame that the player is given the opportunity to make his opponent submit or get reversed if he's out-tapped. The trick is to hit any button on the controller as fast as possible, which is hopefully enough to keep up with your opponent who is doing the same thing. It's a clever and interactive way to break up what was previously a foregone conclusion, and one that's a lot more fun than it sounds. While we're close to the subject of player ratings, the system that Yux and THQ have devised this year makes for a much more realistic simulation. Eliminating the previously used offensive and defensive ability points from the earlier game, the developers have decided to build their superstars more like a sports team, with numeric ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 in 5 different categories. Strength, submission, stamina, technique, and speed are the attributes in question, and each one affects a different aspect of the character. So while Ric Flair may lack the strength and speed to keep up with someone like Rey Mysterio, his submission, technique, and stamina ratings are so high that he should be able to outlast Ray for a hard-fought win. When all these factors are used in conjunction with the new weight detection system, SmackDown's wrestling matches truly start to resemble those seen on TV. Though it does need to be mentioned that although this long overdue weight idea is a welcome addition, it's still not without its problems, namely the performance SmackDown finishers. As despite the fact that grapplers are broken up into 4 different weight classifications to keep Stacy Keibler from lifting Kane, the nature of the SmackDown finisher allows players to still perform lifting moves on bigger opponents if they activate it. It's a minor gripe, yes, but one that should definitely be addressed in time for the next one. 2 more new additions for Here Comes the Pain include the limb-specific body damage and 2-button reversal system. Incorporated into the engine because of the previous game's tendency to end matches as soon as a smackdown was performed, the limb-specific damage adds a very important dynamic to grappling, as submission artists will actually have to work a body part over if they want to make someone tap. The days of taunting the meter to its limit only to perform a finisher and get the cheap win are finally over. But the same could be said about last year's cheap reversal system as well. Separating the general reversal key into 2 for both strikes and grapples, the relocated counter system, now on L2 and R2, eliminates a lot of the random square pushing that wily shut-your-mouth players love to expose. Because of this switch, it is sometimes difficult to tell the difference between a strike and grapple when facing certain opponents, namely The Rock and Goldberg, but it adds a lot more depth and strategy to a game that's best described as an arcade experience. On the positive side, the computer varies its moves a lot more than it used to and shows increased aggression over previous installments. It's definitely the hardest of the bunch, but for all of its sound and fury, veterans should walk all over it in only a matter of days. You'll get plenty more satisfaction from the multiplayer hands down. Also problematic is the occasional bug that sees referees standing in the middle of the ring refusing to count when somebody is pinned. To be fair, it only happened twice over the course of about 700 matches, but hey, if it happens, it needs to be mentioned. At least the refs will realistically only disqualify you for using a foreign object if they're actually looking at you, not if they have their back turned or if they're out cold on the mat. Other minor quibbles are the same ones that we had last year, with certain moves not being able to be stopped because their animations takes too long to finish or they can't be interrupted. There are occasional collision problems too, and it can result in your punches, kicks, or weapon strikes missing an opponent entirely when it shouldn't. When compared with how often this happened in earlier prequels to Smackdown, however, the frequency has been noticeably improved. Truthfully, all of these issues don't take that much away from Here Comes the Pain in the long run, serving as nothing more than minor annoyances rather than glaring omissions. Either way, it leaves a little something more to focus on for next year's follow-up. In reality, or for what passes as reality, Vince McMahon's World Wrestling Entertainment has always been about presentation and marketability. His popular roster of wrestlers enter the ring with unique and elaborate introductions and follow a multitude of different gimmicks and storylines in an effort to put on the best show possible. Once they're in the squared circle, WWE personalities become larger-than-life caricatures that are trying as hard as they can to sell the idea that they hit their opponent with all their being. Backstage, however, it's another story entirely, as most of these giant wrestlers actually turn out to be pretty good friends and enjoy a close-knit family-like environment. To its credit, Here Comes the Pain does a great job of capturing this and makes some significant leaps over its predecessor. In possession of over 200 different storylines, the season mode in Here Comes the Pain was written by actual WWE writers. The majority of the plot devices that power this feature mostly come from the history of the WWE and WWF anyway. Contract signings, screw jobs, backstabbing tag team partners, championship tournaments, and gimmick-laden main events can make your first year in the business pretty damn exciting. Want to reform the Generation X and feud with McMahon's corporation? You can. Didn't think you'd be attacked after a PPV main event while walking backstage in an attempt to steal your hardcore title? Think again. From Shawn Michaels' awesome Skywire entrance at WrestleMania to Steve Austin blasting Nemesis from the hose from a milk truck, you'd be surprised at what THQ has left in store for astute and determined players. After one full year on the circuit, your season mode automatically ends, but players will be given the chance to import all of their records, titles, and stables into a new season should they want to continue. And while it's awesome to know that game keeps track of every wrestler's title history, win/loss record, and their most common opponents, it's the beginning of year 2 where the season mode begins to show its weaknesses. On the one hand, you have the fact that the CPU actually remembers your feuds and partners for some storylines, which is great, but then seems to forget them entirely the subsequent month. We had Vince McMahon on a mission to destroy us all month long, but we could visit him backstage at the PPV where it was supposed to happen only to receive an extra superstar point because he had confidence that we'd take the victory in the main event. Another little snag is that by year 2, a lot of the same storylines will begin to repeat. Don't be surprised if you're nailed by a mystery man with a hammer every single February, and for every 1 or 2 new plotlines that expose themselves, 3 or 4 you will have experienced the previous season. At least Yucks did away with the god-awful first-person exploration mode that ate up load times and our souls in the previous games. Now moving from the arena to the backstage area is as easy as selecting from a locker room menu. go on record by saying that SmackDown kicks Raw 2's ass all over the parking lot regardless of its identical score. With its ultra-improved gameplay mechanics, enhanced visual engine, smarter career mode, and established create-a-character feature, Yux and THQ are definitely the track to success. Not quite on the same level as the legendary Fire Pro or Giant Graham series just yet, Here Comes the Pain could mark a turning point for its franchise and signal the beginning of something great. Wrestling fans should love it.